What's up, everybody? How you doing? Lord PeteyTV here, and we're here for the heroic Manaforge Omega fight for the Soul Hunters. Now, the Soul Hunter fights is actually, in my personal opinion, one of the more complicated fights because there's a lot of different moving parts, and there's a tank swap you got to deal with, there's puddles you got to deal with, there's dispels you got to deal with, there's lots of different things you got to end up dealing with. So I'm going to try to describe and talk to you all about everything as much as I possibly can. So what we end up doing is when I end up getting the first initial debuff, and it stacks to 6, and then it's dispelled off and it goes to the nearest person. And then those people are the ones that end up starting to get into those puddles. And those puddles are going to end up, soak the puddles, and then you're good to go. There's also this frontal soak from the hunt that you need to have a bunch of people in, because if you don't, there's just too much damage. And there's just everybody moving around. There's these fractured bodies, as you can see, and you pretty much have to run through them to get them to break and go back to the tanks or to other people. Pretty sure it's just the tanks. And then you have your puddles that are forming consistently, and none of them are stacking together. So you're consistently communicating, DPSing down, 1, 2, 3, or 4, if you want to say, or 1, 2, 3, I should say, for all of them. So you got to be careful of hunts. You really want to be careful of just massive amounts of damage that are being placed out. So you kind of end up having to do that. See, you can see the bear in the back. So the biggest issue I felt, we lost on the pull. We start DPSing. I start communicating. This is the most important stuff for me. The most important stuff was the dispels for getting that done. The intermissions, there is a lot of damage being thrown out, so that's something that people really, really need to be aware of. And you really need to be aware of the metamorphoses that are rotated throughout the room. Like this is the collapsing star, which means you got all these balls that are going to start coming into the middle of the room. You got to end up starting to grab those, and you have to keep an eye on damage and everything else. Now, I will say that the stacking debuff you do get starts going away during these phases, which is pretty nice and pretty handy. Overall, I think that this fight, you just have to make sure you are keeping an eye on what you're doing. As long as the healers are doing their healing thing, tanks are doing their tank thing, you'd be surprised how much stuff is actually, how easy this is done. I appreciate everybody for checking out our videos. And as always, my name is Lord PeteyTV. I'm here every single Monday through Friday on Twitch and on YouTube. If you're looking to support the channel, as always, you have the option to follow, join, subscribe, whatever you're looking to do for the channel. I appreciate any and all of it. We got some really cool stuff that's going to be embedding in the member only chat section of YouTube. Just something to kind of put into your head. So here we're going to go through and we're going to end up DPSing more. As you saw before, there was like these mini hunts that happened. The frontal eye beam that's going off onto the tank. You got to be careful of those. And there's the spell that needs to go off of me. So we have that going on. Now that dispel, you really don't want it to go onto somebody that already had it. So you really want to make sure when you dispel, it goes onto a new person. So and then here you go. We're going to end up DPSing these guys down even more. And the fight is really long, in my personal opinion. You really, really, really need to be paying attention from almost all of the fight while things are going on, because there's so many different moving parts. You have to be careful of your feet because of, frontal attacks. You have to be careful if you're soaking. You have to be careful of the random raid-wide damage. You got to be careful of the Demon Hunter ability, that little slice that's happening, the dispel that's happening. So as you can see, here's another metamorphosis phase, which is the Fell Rush. We just try to point as much away from possible and not move. Everyone else is pretty much responsible to get the hell out of your way. So that's the biggest thing. Get the hell out of the way. And then you kind of just go through it. Now, we're pretty lax for a raid team, so it's something that you kind of just want to continuously watch. As you can see what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to point it out of the group. And there we go, intermission over. We got somebody at 34%, and then another person at 49%, and another person at 40%. At this point, I was just like, hey, guys, what are you doing? We gotta even these numbers out. And we start laying into Dark Sorrow to bring his number down. And you can see how that was starting to work very, very quickly. And we are pretty much cleaving the others as it's going through. It works out pretty well for me because I just throw out Beast Cleave and then, they do their thing. So they're going through it, and we're going Dark Shadow, Dark Sorrow, DPSing things down. And you can see that Blood Wraith is at 22%. Duskblaze is at 30%. I'm sorry, at 20%. And then the last guy is at 34%. And we're trying to get everybody down together. And the biggest thing is that there is an overall enrage on these guys, which we did hit once, which made me question if we were going to be able to do it. But then I realized it was just one of those, we just needed to see it, and now we're going to be able to get it with no problem. And that's essentially what ends up happening. We're following everything that's happening. I'm trying to make sure I get all my soaks because I want to do my part here. And I'm just DPSing whoever's the closest to me, to be honest. Because it's really hard when you're a soaker to get other things, like to get specific people for DPSing. So we're going to end up doing that. It's going to end up doing a frontal jump. And then that is one of this guy's, metamorphosis phase. He starts doing a Fell Devastation, which is a frontal cone, which is a slow. So essentially you want to get out of the way, and the more stacks you get, the more damage you get on you. So be really, really careful there. So we're going to end up just continuing to DPS the boss as we're going around. And now we're kind of getting to that point where I'm like, okay, we really need to start getting these people down, or we're going to be in so much trouble. So we end up starting to pretty much having everybody trying to focus down the big bosses. So Duskblaze and Dark Sorrow, I try to focus as much as I possibly can. And the group, I kind of tell them the same thing and just cleave the rest. Now, I personally thought we weren't going to do it because I thought the numbers were too much off and we are going to start getting too much raid-wide damage. We did have 2 reses at this point, which was a good thought, but we ended up having to really, really watch what we were doing. That frontal eye beam was crazy. There's a Fell Devastation later on that I thought was just going to screw us up big time, but it didn't. But anyway, so here is the Dark Sorrow is at 4. Blood Wraith is at 3, and the other guy is at 2. So this is when I was like, all right, well, we're just going to start popping people off because they're all in the metamorphosis phase. So the more we just start taking out, the more we're going to not have so much problems. So I started working on Dark Sorrow because I thought that it had the most amount of HP. And as you can see, some people start getting knocked off because of that frontal. So we ended up losing Roar and Gremlin, and then we ended up getting it down. So we got very lucky. I'm very proud of the team. We're doing great in Heroic, and we're going to be doing more for the rest of the week. So thanks again.